Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Boxing Bananas. I am Ray the Business Roberts here, joined by the professor himself, Mr. John Bradford. How you doing, brother?
Good man, good man. Can't wait for tomorrow night, brother. Cannot wait for it. Cannot absolutely wait for it. I called it
I
Christmas in June for boxing, or boxing Christmas in June, whatever, how you want to say it.
No, this is good, man. This is good. We've had some pretty big fights recently. I feel like this is a good card also.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We
Yes.
talk about on this program about how boxing needs good cards as well. You know what I mean? Something that's been lacking in boxing for quite a while now is, they'll really stack the top and then don't really put a lot into the undercards. And this one I feel like is definitely a very good card, especially that co-main event could be a
Yeah,
pay-per-view in itself. We've already seen David Benavidez on
exactly.
2 pay-per-views. But
Exactly.
before we get into it, everyone on Fight Bananas, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the Fight Bananas on YouTube and make sure you follow the brand new Boxing Bananas official Instagram page. We're going to be posting the boxing stuff on there because, Fight Bananas is very MMA based and heavy. We will be doing collaboration posts and whatnot. So you'll definitely get to see it. And I know you'll see that handle if you follow the Fight Bananas Instagram. So you got no excuse to not follow. So make sure you're following in there. We got some good stuff cooking up for tomorrow night. We'll talk about that in a minute. But like I said, make sure you follow that. Make sure you subscribe to the Fight Bananas YouTube. And we're gonna get into some of these fights over the weekend. We got our weekend preview going up. In all, tomorrow we got some good stuff. We have some fights out of the UK
Yep.
early in
Starting
the
at
day. That's kind of like
2
the
o'clock.
appetizer.
Yep.
What time did you say it
Absolutely.
starts?
I believe it starts at 2. I'm trying to find that right now for us.
I like that.
It looks like it's 2 o'clock our time is when it's going to start.
Sweet.
And
You
it's
got
free on Peacock. I checked. It's
free
free
on
on Peacock.
Peacock, ladies and
Yep.
gentlemen. So make sure you check those out. We got Mr. Ben Whitaker, the internet sensation. He's like the new generation drunken master, the way he fights with the
Oh yeah. He's
style like Emmanuel Augustus type. So
it's actually pretty cool because we have a major light heavyweight fight in the biggest card, that we're gonna have tomorrow night, which is David Benavidez and I hope I pronounce this gentleman's name right. Gvozdyk, Gvozdyk, Gvozdyk,
something like that. I don't really
something
know how
like
to say
that.
it either.
I'm gonna say Oleksandr because I know how to pronounce that. So when David and Oleksandr go at it, Ben Whitaker earlier in the afternoon is a light heavyweight prospect, former Olympian. It's one of those. Check out the new guy coming up the line, and watch the ones in their prime already. You know what I mean? Later in the day, so that's kind of neat.
Most definitely, man. And that's something that, especially in boxing, like, at the end of the day, not everyone is going to have what it takes to go to that world level, but you definitely want to invest your time into seeing these guys, seeing them climb their way up. And for my MMA fans watching, this is something where it's kind of like when you watch those early prelim UFC cards. You know what I'm saying? And a prime example of that was when I went to the UFC Orlando in 2015. Dude, the early prelims, like the first fight of the night was Francis Ngannou. It was
Amazing.
Usman versus Edwards 1. Like,
Yeah.
dude, there was like a Charles Oliveira was on the card. Like, dude, there was so many people on the card. So
Yeah.
now in boxing, that's something that you kind of want to watch these guys come up, and then for all you fans out there, you could be like, oh, I've been following this guy his whole career coming up. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
absolutely. I agree. I remember. It blows my mind that I got to see Francis Ngannou live, and like I said, the early prelims. It blew my mind because now you're looking at it going, he's making
yeah,
hundreds of, he's making $100 million in 2 boxing matches, and I saw him on the prelim in Orlando. It's
yeah,
crazy.
nuts, right? So definitely check those out. But before we get into the PBC pay-per-view, this is a fight that I want to touch up on, and a fight that a lot of people really, really should pay attention to. It's at the junior welterweight division, aka the super lightweight division, depending on how you want to call it. It's 140 pounds. We have the IBF champion defending his title, Subriel Matias, out of Puerto Rico, and they're fighting in Puerto Rico as well. He's fighting the Australian Liam Paro. And guys, the reason you want to tune into this dude, he is 20-0, 20 knockouts. Something that we never really like to see in boxing ever, but there is one of his opponents who is no longer alive because of that. Pretty much the ultimate unfortunate event in boxing, but that is a testament of what this guy can do in the ring, how dangerous this guy is, and another reason why people really don't want to fight this guy. Something
Yeah.
I want to bring up about Subriel Matias before we really break this down and I pass it off to you is, remember a few years ago, starting with the Nicholas Walters fight, who was the undefeated Jamaican, when Lomachenko
Yeah,
started,
I remember that. I remember that real well.
he started getting guys to quit on the stool, and he did
Mhm.
it 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
And then he started calling himself Nomaschenko.
I don't know that he called himself that. Everybody else called him that.
I think he said it on the. I think some people start. I don't know if he started it. Right? People
Okay.
probably started it, but he picked it up on one of the post-fight
He did.
interviews.
He did do that.
I want to say, yeah, he started calling himself Nomaschenko. Everyone started calling him Nomaschenko, which was funny at the time. And for our old boxing fans, it's a throwback to Roberto Duran in the rematch where he said no mas famously. But guys, Vasily Lomachenko did that with 4 fights in a row. This guy, Subriel Matias, has now done it with 5 in a row. I'm going to call him Subriel No Matias.
Yeah.
Starting now. So, dude, yeah, this guy's legit. You definitely want to see him. What are your thoughts on this fight? And do you think people, and most importantly, do you think Matias is overlooking Paro?
See, that was what I was going to ask you. So that's a good question.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, where do you think this one goes? And if does it go the whole way? I know Paro is legit, but I don't know that, like, so let's compare this to the other 20-0, 20 knockout guy that we know of, Beterbiev fighting Bivol, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 of the best absolute top light heavyweights in the world.
Absolutely. 2 of the best fighters in the world, forget about just the weight class.
Yes. But for this instance of what I'm saying is they're the top of the upper echelon of that weight class, clearly, right? Because the guy David Benavidez already lost one of them that he's fighting. That guy's ranked in the top 10 as well, right?
Who are you talking about?
Oleksandr lost to Beterbiev.
Oh yeah.
That's his only loss, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So one of the guys we have on the card and up there has already lost to him, and we're talking about that's the upper echelon of the light heavyweight division. And so when you look at that, when you're looking at it like, well, Beterbiev may not knock out Bivol, right? Because they're there, right? It's essentially like before we saw the gap between Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence, we thought that was a neck-and-neck fight. Everybody did, 50-50 all the way through. I think the Bivol and Beterbiev fight is pretty neck-and-neck in my eyes as well because just the way the styles match up. I don't know that Liam Paro is at that level with Matias to make it that type of challenge. Do you know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. I know exactly what you're saying. You know what I mean?
Like, I feel like
is this
I don't
a
think
50-50 fight?
Yeah.
Essentially is what you're asking, right?
Well, I don't think it's a 50-50 fight. I think Matias is really going to have a bad performance
in order
for
to
Liam
make it
Paro to be
fight.
successful. I'm not saying it's the Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson stuff in any kind of way, but Subriel Matias is going to have kind of just a half cock performance, do some really bad things, and then I could see him faltering. I think if he fights like himself in any kind of way, the best Parham can do is pull out a how do you want to call it? Pull out a decision victory for Matias. Like just take it 12 rounds. You know what I mean? To me, that's the best ending for him. He doesn't get knocked out. He's healthy at the end of it and everything like that. Because I think if Matias shows anything more than what he is, and he puts on any type of performance, I'm thinking Paro's out of there before 9.
I think that might be fair to say. We'll break down his box rec real quick, and then we'll take a little deep dive into Paro's as well. Real quick, we got is the fight rescheduled with a bunch of question marks? Which fight are you talking about? Because I have not heard of any rescheduled unless I'm late on my news. If so, if we got some breaking news, make sure you drop that and we'll feature that on here. But for now, we're gonna break down Subriel Matias's record. So we look at some of these ones, and you know how in boxing, let's bring up this right here, the one in the loss column.
Yeah.
So nowadays, it's not as big of a deal as much as it used to be because we're kind of weaning our way out of that post Floyd Mayweather era where everybody was, so attached to that. I feel like now in really the way boxing should be going is it doesn't matter if you have losses on your record, but if you're exciting, for one, that's the main thing. Because if you're not exciting, nobody wants to watch it. Prime example, and people can debate me all day on this. Prime example is Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know were talking about, I literally fell asleep in his last fight. One, because it was late on a Thursday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're grown adults. We have jobs and whatnot. We got to be up in the morning. We can't be up until 12:30 at night watching a guy just disengage all night. You know what I mean? But I feel like, somebody would take a guy who's got 4 losses, but is exciting all day over a guy who's undefeated, quote unquote. And just to get it straight, undefeated just means you haven't lost yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not everybody's perfect. There's even debates that Floyd lost in his career, and at least one of them isn't even really a debate, but that's for another show. We could go down a rabbit hole on that one.
Yeah, we'll go back. We'll bring that back one day.
For sure, most definitely. But on a day that we don't have a plethora of content already lined up for you because we got a big day tomorrow in boxing, so we want to make sure we touch up on that while we got everybody invested listening. So that being said, let's look into this. I mean, we see a lot of 10 rounders on here, but we see guys, with good records. Look at this guy, 62-8. And I mean, obviously you kind of have to go in to see who they fought. But, 4th round stoppage, 4th round, 1st round, 6th round, 11th round, 5th round, 6th round. We do have that loss here on the record. And Matias was down in the 7th round. But if you look, 3 fights later, he took him out in 9. He made him quit after 9. So this is a guy who basically avenged his only loss, which essentially, is like a semi-undefeated. You know what I mean? So he can say he's beat everyone he's ever faced. But then when we look at these last 5, this is what I'm talking about. The RTD means they retired on the stool. So we got 6, 5, 9, 8, 6. Man,
that means they're getting beat up. For everybody that may not quite, understand that part. When you retire on a stool, you're just getting beat up and you feel like there's nothing else you can do. This isn't MMA to where I can take him down and hold him. Maybe I can submit him or something like that. I have 2 hands, 2 weapons, and 2 ways to defend. And if I'm just getting beat up, there's just nothing I can do. And for your health, it's just better to do what they did.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's one of those things where it's like if you brought your game plan in, that didn't work. You had to resort to plan B. Maybe plan B doesn't work. If you're a complete enough fighter where you have plan B, C, maybe D, nothing's working. Nothing's working anymore. The guy hits too hard, and it's just, you know what? Me or my corner decided, hey, this isn't worth moving forward with in the fight for the sake of the fighter. And I mean, that's something that's, it's one of those things that sometimes can be a little anticlimactic in the fight, but as far as like props go, you know what I mean? You're making people quit on the stool. That's kind of a big deal. But that being said, let's take a look at the B side, the opposition, we have Liam Paro from Queensland, Australia, and he is 24-0, another undefeated fighter. But if we see here, we got a America fight against Montana Love. That was a big win for him.
Yeah.
That was definitely a big win for him. Montana Love was a guy that, they were definitely hyping up. He's the guy, if I'm not incorrect, that was walking out with the Frenchie dog.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
And then real quick, we got a clarification. The fight of Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin. The previous comment was, is the fight rescheduled?
No. No.
I'm not seeing. I'm looking up right now, and as of 2 hours ago, I feel like
they had their weigh-in and face-off tonight. The last one.
Yeah, you know what I mean? As of 2 hours ago, that would be like the top stories. The news would just be all over the place if that was the case.
Our guy, the Presidente, Dave Van Auken, who's there right now, he would have had that live lockdown for us if that was happening. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, so, since we have someone in there.
Yeah.
The Fight Bananas president himself, we probably would have had that news before our phones would have been blowing up.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Before even the public knew.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
We would have had a conversation talking to each other how sad we were that it got rescheduled.
Yeah, this podcast probably would have been delayed another 10 minutes just because we would have been on the phone beforehand. So
yeah, exactly.
But so
I don't think it is.
I don't think so either. But you know what I mean? We look into Brock Jarvis. You know what I mean? Some of his opponents, when we go into kind of the deep dive, that's where you kind of really see, because someone can have a record like this, but it's about not only the people they faced, because they could have good records, but then you have to see who those people that have those records face. So there's multi-levels into breaking down people's records. It's not always black and white on paper. There's a lot of gray area in there. And
Go into 2 seconds for me, because we saw when you clicked on to Brock Jarvis had 19 wins and 1 KO, or 21 wins with 1 KO, right? How many KOs does he have?
19.
Oh, he has 19 KOs. Okay, I saw the
other he had 1 KO loss, which that's what it
was. Okay,
Liam Paro. So the only concern that I would say that I have about this is that when a fighter fights like a majority of their fights in one country, you know what I mean? And then the other thing that's cool about BoxRec, for nobody that's been on there, is if you see these little dots, that shows you their last fights, the opponent's last fight. So we got win, 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 loss, win, 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 draw, win, 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 things of that nature. And then when you get down here, you see loss, 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 draw, loss, loss. You know, it's a 2-8 guy. So it's, I don't know how much we could really take out of that, but you know what I mean? He's a guy that's ready to fight.
Yeah, I think he's one of the better ones definitely coming out. I'm not going to take anything away from Liam Paro. I just don't know that he's on Matias's level right at this moment. That's nothing to knock in any kind of way. I mean, Matias, I think, is just that gifted of a fighter, and I think that loss made him really. You don't go from a loss to 5 retirement on his stools without something clicking a little bit different in you, or something motivating where that's not happening again. I'm not doing that. I'm not losing like that. Whatever it is, and then take off that way. I think a good example of to explain to some people, Caleb Plant, before he fought Canelo and lost his belt, he fought a dude from Germany that was the mandatory for, I think, the WBO or the WBA.
The IBF.
Or the WBF one, right? And it was a dude that only fought in Germany. He was 30-1. He has a great record, but like I said, again, he only pretty much fought in Germany, and you saw the class difference in it really badly.
Most definitely.
And like you said, I think that proves exactly your point there, where if you stay in that country, especially in countries that are can be isolated in a sense, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying that they're kind of just farther away, things like that. They don't always have
You're not fighting on a world stage, like a world level.
Exactly.
You know
Exactly.
what I
That's what I
mean?
meant to say. Yeah.
Unless you're in a country that has a ton of world level opposition in your weight class,
Yeah. And
which
it just
is
shows
a
you that.
country kind of like America,
Yeah.
where, depending on the weight class, I mean, some weight classes no, but other weight classes, and then
Other
some of the
stat.
smaller weight classes,
Right.
you got all the Asian countries, especially like Japan, you got
Yep.
guys that are really good in there. Mexico is definitely a country where, depending on the record, so yeah, most definitely. And something you said too was, he might not be on Matias's level. To be fair, I don't know that some of the other champions in the division are on Matias's level. Matias might
Very
be
true.
very well the best one in the division right now. It's technically Teofimo Lopez, with his win over Josh Taylor, holding the Ring Magazine title. But who knows? It's one of the Teofimo's a guy who you roll the dice on which Teofimo you're going to get on the night.
Saw something where he wanted Terrence Crawford now.
Oh,
I was
good
like, I
luck.
don't think that you want that. I don't think you want that.
Good luck, brother. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's definitely gonna be a good fight. I wish I was there. You know what I mean? I've said it several times. Any excuse I have that I can go to Puerto Rico, I'm taking it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Absolutely.
but not this time. Maybe the next time. That being said, we'll see what happens in there. What I want to get into now is the Amazon on Prime, or Amazon Prime PBC pay-per-view for the first time. And actually, before we get into the undercard, man, what do you think about it being on on PBC on Prime for the first time? Do you think we could
Um,
possibly see some sort of, maybe like broadcast issues, maybe some hiccups, maybe some lag, things of that nature with it being a new platform?
um, I would assume that the company Amazon Prime, I mean, I trust them as far as broadcasting. They got the deal with One FC, and
Hmm.
I've watched a couple of those cards on Friday nights. That they give you for free. They are having a pay-per-view one soon, but later in September when they're coming over to America. But everything else has been free, and they go pretty smooth. I know One FC has a lot to do with that. They put on a lot of shows. But PBC has done that with Fox. They worked with Fox for a while. I think it was Fox Sports One when when they had their last deal with that. So I think they understand that, and I think Amazon will be able to cover any glitches. I mean, are they the biggest company in the world? I mean, something close to it. You know what I mean?
Something like that, yeah. And also, to be fair, any of those glitches, maybe they've been able to get through with having to deal with Thursday Night Football.
Yeah,
They've been doing Thursday Night Football, and I know there was some hiccups to start that.
yeah.
So maybe
And I
they've
think
worked through it.
they got through it by the end of the season. I was watching it pretty. It was carefree during near the end of it. They ran through it pretty well, but I think
Yeah.
they're going to be fine. It's pay-per-view. They're going to put a little bit more money, time and effort into it because now you're paying for it and things like that. And to be honest, I mean, it is a great question because the UFC still F's up on some of their stuff, and they've been doing this for the
Forever.
pay-per-view model for years.
It's monthly.
Yeah,
You know,
so it could happen, but I think it'll be all right.
we'll see what happens. We'll be the judge of that next week. So that being
Exactly.
said, let's get into some of the fights on here. We have the event pulled up right here, and if you see, this right here is the official undercard. The prelims, we got Roman Villa on there. That's a good fighter.
Yep.
Definitely good fighter. He just lost to Boots Ennis, but Boots Ennis, might now be, with Terrence Crawford gone, might now be the best in the welterweight division. Mark Magsayo's good. And then we get into the first fight of the undercard. Carlos Adames, who is now the WBC champion. He was the interim, but now he's been elevated because Jermall Charlo hadn't fought since, I mean, it's been like 3 years now. So finally he's got stripped of that. His one loss, ironically, came to a guy we talked about recently, Patrick Teixeira. who just fought Xander Zayas. But since then has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights. He's on a 5-fight win streak.
All
4 of
KOs?
those.
Nope, one
Yeah.
majority decision. 4 of those KOs.
Yeah, and the majority decision was against Sergey Derevyanchenko.
Oh, that dude's tough as hell.
Yeah, some people thought, he could have got a decision over Triple G.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a tough fight. Also, it's not an easy night for anybody. But he beat Julian Williams, former 3-belt unified world champion. And yeah, man, we'll see what happens. Terrell Gausha. We got a loss against Tim Zhu. I got a loss against Erickson the Hammer Lubin.
Yep.
From Orlando. He had a draw with Austin No Doubt Trout, who's now the BKFC champion, and a loss against Arislandi Lara. I mean, these losses are in draw. I mean, we're talking about world champions.
Yeah.
Besides Lubin's never been a world champion, but I heard from a little birdie that he may be fighting for the IBF title coming up in the division. So look out for that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that, yeah, he's definitely.
Alfredo's hating on us right now. I know all this already. Yawn. What do you know, Alfredo? Tell us what you know.
Tell us let's hear it. Let's hear it, brother. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Did you know Erickson Lubin's gonna be fighting for the IBF title? Because I heard that through connections. I bet you didn't know that one. But yeah, man. And also, that's the other thing too, man. The show is for people who might not know these things. You know what I mean? Who might need a little bit of a better breakdown of what's going on. So
this should be an entertaining fight. I'm gonna take the guy right there. I'm gonna take Carlos Adames. I think he'll pull it out, but I think it's gonna be a good fight. Most of these undercards I feel are gonna be pretty good bangers, man. They got some. They matched this up really good.
Yeah, most definitely. And then we got a little reply from our guy, our number one fan, Alfredo.
We don't think you are, brother. We don't think you are.
Nah, for sure, man, for sure. So, let us know what fight are you looking forward to the most, Alfredo? You let us know.
Absolutely.
So, that being said, we'll get to the next fight. We got Antuanne Russell, the brother of world champion Gary Russell Jr. 17 wins, 17 KOs. Even though some of those KOs I thought were a little cooked by the refs, still like the Vitor Postal fight. You know what I mean? We got 29 seconds left in the last round. I thought that one was a little bit rough, but it is what it is.
That's tough.
He's fighting Alberto Puello from the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
And you know what? I mean, we'll see what happens. A lot of people aren't really fans of Dominican fighters, I'll be honest with you. But I feel like that's just because I hear it from a lot of Puerto Ricans. But sometimes you don't see too many Dominican world champions. We had Hector Luis Garcia recently, but yeah, man, he's got some. I mean, his last fight was an 8-rounder, so we'll see what happens in that. Any thoughts?
The one before that was 12, I think.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this fight?
I think when you look at it, you got 17-0, 17 knockouts. You got 22-0 with 10 knockouts. You look at it. We looked at the other side of it. He went from an 8-rounder. Now he's going back to a 12. When he went, it was 12, 10, and something before it. I think they matched it up to where you're going to see Gary Russell get some rounds, get some quality rounds, and then I think get the stoppage again. I think that's what they're trying to set this up for. A guy that's going to last a little bit longer. Make sure. I know the one dude lasted till the last minute, and he probably would have been fine for 9 seconds. I'm not going to argue that in any kind of way because that's tough. But I think this is another setup for the guy to keep 18-0, 18 knockouts, but still get quality rounds in for a little while. And I think that's kind of what this setup looks to be to me. So I would say I'll go with the setup, and I'll say around 8 or 9. Gary gets him out of there.
I'll put $1 on that.
Okay.
On the no, I'm putting that on the bookies.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
taking the odds. Yeah. I'm not going against you on there. I'm going with you.
Oh, okay.
On that one.
I would think that's probably the way they want this one to run, somewhere late. I wouldn't be surprised if you're even.
We got Lubin's not even in the IBF top 15 in 54 rankings. But if you say so, listen, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying I heard it from somebody who heard it straight out of Lubin's mouth. So maybe he's blowing smoke, right? We'll see what happens. But that's the word on the street from the inside.
I'm going to tell you this right now.
But the thing is, real quick, I do know the way that the IBF is with their ranking system, and sometimes they're way too strict about their ranking system. So Alfredo said he's not a casual, so he might have a point there. You know what I mean? But go ahead, John.
At the same time, this is boxing, bro, and crazy crap happens all the time. And this is a fight game. I understand exactly what you're saying, Alfredo, and I agree with you when you say something like that, because the rank, he may not be ranked there. Somebody may be blowing smoke. You never know. But I also know that this is the fight game, and the fight game is crazy.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Who knows? Who knows?
Most definitely. But that being said, let's get into our co-main event. Mr. David Benavidez versus Oleksandr Gvozdyk. Man, Benavidez, I mean, what else can you say about him? 28-0, 24 knockouts, coming off of a stoppage against Demetrius Andrade, coming off of a great
retired him on the chair.
Yep, exactly. Which I was actually surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, he was getting beat up, so I guess I wasn't really that surprised in hindsight. But in the moment, I was like, damn.
Well, I mean, it's not like Andrade's a slouch in any kind of way. He was 32-0 before that fight. It's like, you always wondered if he could compete with the top upper echelon, because then he didn't get a lot of looks that way, a lot of chances to fight all the bigger names. And then you just kind of looked at it and said, oh, David's just that good. David's that good.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, according to Canelo, he was a horrible fighter. You're a horrible fighter. But, that's just what they say. I mean, we got the David Lemieux stoppage, Kyron Davis stoppage, that
was a hell of a fight, man.
Which one?
The Caleb Plant one. I mean, the way he was able to pour it on late, because I feel like he was getting outboxed a little bit early, but the way he got to pour it on late, I mean, just a heck of a fighter, man. Just heck of a fighter. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And the thing about David Benavidez, man, he has so much potential. He's a guy that even at 175, like, seeing him, he still looks like he has a lot to be able to fill out into. Like, he used to fight a heavyweight in the amateurs, but also he said it was because he was a fat boy trying to get back into shape. But I think with David Benavidez, he has a lot of potential.
I think heavyweight is like only 201 in 201 in amateurs, though. So it's like, as soon as you're over 201, I think it's all heavyweight. I don't know if there's
same thing with pros.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, he weighs somewhere, he walks around somewhere, he said somewhere 185 to 90. So I could easily see him at one point being slightly not wanting to cut weight, things like that as a kid, you know what I mean? Easily fighting heavyweight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, and that's the thing too. He was on the podcast we were listening to. If you haven't seen it, check it out. He's on the, what was it called? Pound for Pound with Triple C and Kamaru Usman. He goes down into depths because he had a relationship with Triple C from when he was younger. They trained together, all that kind of stuff, and he's seen him really grow up. He talks about how he had rounds when he was like 15 years old with Triple G.
Yeah.
So David Benavidez, I mean, he's been in the fire in the gym, and I think that's why we see such great performances out of him being able to really utilize his like natural abilities and whatnot. He seems like he has that experience under his belt, and we'll see what happens. I mean, what do you see happening in this fight? Also, real quick, let me throw out there too. he even talked about how these guys used to spar back in the day, and even Gvozdyk said that David Benavidez used to dominate him in the sparrings. Now, sparring is definitely a different thing,
Mhm.
but they asked David Benavidez, "What do you think about that?" He goes, "I just don't think that he's an asshole. Like he's not an asshole. He's gonna tell you the truth and whatnot, but he's definitely gonna come to win. He's not coming to lose, and I'm taking him seriously."
Yeah.
So with that information as well, how do you see this fight playing out?
Good. So I'll tell you my parlay for the day, right? Here's my parlay tomorrow night. Here we go.
Let's hear it.
All right. So I think the best way to bet this is I heard that even money for Gervonta Davis getting less than 9.5 rounds, getting Frank out of there in less than 9.5. And then I would tie that in with David Benavidez, any stoppage after 6, if we could play it that way, or late stoppage, whatever they're giving us for the numbers. But I would say, even if I wanted to say David Benavidez by stoppage, whether TKO, KO, and then I would parlay that with the even money with Gervonta getting Frank out of there earlier than 9.5, because I think David's really going to try to put on a performance. This guy's only loss is to Beterbiev, who knocked him out, and Beterbiev knocked everybody out.
You talking about Gvozdyk?
Yeah, Gvozdyk, Oleksandr, right? I think David wants to get him out of there too. I think he's gonna do it, and if he's had that success in sparring, and this guy already knows it, that there's success there, he might come in gun shy at the beginning, and it's going to take a little while. I don't want to say gun shy, but he might come in at the more, I'm going to stay at a range, I'm going to be a bit more longer, or however you want to play it. He may not want to get into quick exchanges with him early, and I think David has to work to get him out of there in the later rounds. And I think he does. I think he does.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I agree. At the end of the day, it's boxing, so anything can happen. But with him being 37, that's not the best age.
Yeah.
To be fighting somebody who's 10 years younger than you, who's a killer, destroyer. Granted, he is coming up from 168, but he's the type of guy that, he's a big boy. It's not like he was already, I mean, he lost his title because he was missing weight at 168.
Yeah.
So he's missed weight a couple times. It's not, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's nothing like that. His one loss is coming to the guy there's the debate of who's the best in the division right now, Beterbiev or Bivol. And other than that, he has that huge win in 2018 over Superman Stevenson, which won him the title. So he's a former world champion. And, obviously he really hurt Adonis Stevenson in that fight. So this is no slouch either.
No, not at all.
But if I'm putting my money down on it, I'm putting it down on David Benavidez, possibly by stoppage. And, ultimately, I just want to see an exciting fight.
Yeah, I think we will. I think it'll still be a good fight. Who knows? Maybe he puts it all on the line, says, I'm coming forward. I'm going to go get him, and we're going to see what happens. Then we're going to see a great fight. That's going to be amazing then.
Yeah, no, for sure. Most definitely. And I mean, this is kind of his last shot. You know what I mean? If he loses this fight, do you get another title fight at 38, 39, 40 years old? And do you expect to perform?
Not in that division. You won't get another one at that age with the record you'll have. Not with the other guys that are around it. You won't get that.
Especially with all the titles being held up by 2 guys.
Yeah.
And this is really kind of the only other way in right now is fighting for the interim title for the WBC. So
agreed.
That's it. If he wins against David, you pretty much steal that opportunity because it's already talked about how if David wins, he could be very much the next person in line to fight for the undisputed crown once we see that undisputed unification in October. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. The main question when it comes to David Benavidez, obviously, is Canelo Alvarez. Is he going to? I've seen in interviews where he's like, "Oh, forget about Canelo. I'm at 175 now," and then other ones where he's talking about entertaining that fight still. About if he wants to fight, we'll see what happens. We've talked about on here about the marination of that fight. I mean, how do you see that playing out? If he wins, do you see him going back to 168? Do you see him staying at 175? What are your thoughts on that?
It will be by Canelo's decision. It'll be whatever Canelo says. Because then I read another article today saying that Canelo said he is now up for the Terrence Crawford fight, and as long as the money's right. You know, I read something there. I read something today there, and I was a little shocked. It's like he's going back and forth. To me, Canelo understands the business of boxing. He's going to find a way to make the most to whoever's going to make him the most, and that will be the best. And if David can get another title at 175, even if it's interim, it'll make it more enticing. I mean, which one do you think is the bigger fight, Terrence Crawford for Canelo or David Benavidez?
That's a great question. I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like the Terrence Crawford fight might be bigger, but the David Benavidez fight might be bigger too because of the fan base that he'll bring. Also, like people that know boxing know that this is a better fight than Crawford. Crawford still does have a chance. At the end of the day, I don't like the Crawford fight at all. I don't want to see either of them lose against the other one. And with a win, I mean, with a win for Crawford, that would be the best thing he could ever do. But with a win for Canelo, like it doesn't do anything for you. And that was Canelo's point to begin with, is it's already like a lose-lose, because if I lose, then it's terrible. But if I win, then they're just gonna say, oh, well, you know, he was coming up in the weight and this and that. So there's not really a plus side for Canelo in that other than the money.
Yep.
But if I'm Canelo and I'm getting offered the same amount of money, because I feel like either way he goes, to pay Canelo to fight either of those guys, it's going to have to involve Saudi money. And if you're getting that Saudi paycheck for either of those fights, you can't blame him if he's going to take the Crawford fight, because that's probably an easier fight. Skill-wise, you know, technical boxing-wise, no. But as far as having all the advantages, he'll have all the advantages, where in a David Benavidez fight, he's going to be at a disadvantage size-wise, etc.
Agreed. And to help this make it a little bit easier, probably who's going to get the fight? Saudi money does want to get involved, and guess who the Prince Sheikh wants what number one fight he wants to make is?
Terrence Crawford. He's already been talking about the Terrence Crawford fight. So,
well, I mean, that's if he's going to offer the money, Canelo's not going to back away from Saudi money. Neither is Terrence Crawford. You know, he'll sign up for it. It's going to be as if Crawford get past Madrimov, I wouldn't be surprised to go ahead and say, oh, he got another belt, whatever, you know what I mean? And then Canelo might be ready to go then from at that point. Canelo still has to fight one other person, right? He has somebody that has to fight.
I don't think so. I think right now he's pretty much in the clear. The only other, and even David said this in the what's it called? Like the media days leading up, either yesterday or the day before, he was saying, you know, Canelo's over here fighting these guys. You know, he won the titles, but then now he's fighting guys. He did have his one mandatory in John Ryder, but out of all the mandatories, that was kind of like the weakest mandatory. And then from there, he's fighting, you know, Jermell Charlo, a guy who was 2 weight classes lower. And then he fought this guy, Munguia. You know what I mean? It's fights essentially that people didn't really ask for, you know. So I've been a Canelo fan, but I agree with David in that, like, nobody's asked for those fights, and it especially is one of those things where you, like David said, he goes, you have a number one guy in the division, me, and the number two guy contender is David Morrell, and he's not going to fight either of us. So what is he doing? So that's which now both of them are moving up to 175, which kind of gives the Canelo the excuse, well, okay, nobody else is really there to fight me. Berlanga isn't really like a real fight. Like, they'll try and sell it as the Mexico versus Puerto Rico thing. Puerto Rico's not going to get behind Edgar Berlanga. It's not going to happen, and that fight's not going to do big numbers, and it's a mismatch as well. So there's not really anyone else to fight, so I guess it would make sense for him to fight Terrence Crawford in that super fight. But
I mean, I don't need to see
Alfredo, then why don't Benavidez fight Morrell? That's a great question, actually. I was kind of wondering that too. You know what I mean? Why doesn't Benavidez fight Morrell? I thought surely that PBC would probably set that fight up. Like if they're not going to set up the Canelo fight, then set up, because PBC wants to keep like make pay-per-views, and then we got another comment, and make the alphabets make Canelo fight the winner. Yeah, for sure, because at that point you would have the WBA mandatory and the WBC mandatory. Essentially, both of them had the secondary titles fighting each other, and that would create a pure, like, unquestionable mandatory. So I don't know what PBC was doing. I thought surely that they would an in-house PBC. Yeah, absolutely. We're on the same page, brother. They would do that because you know how PBC, they want to keep that pay-per-view in-house. They want to be able to sell that without having to split that off and with somebody else, unless it's a huge fight where they'll be able to generate the revenue for it. So I don't know, man. That's a good question. I don't know why we haven't seen it. David Morrell is a guy who I don't think a lot of people are signing up to fight, to be honest. People don't really want to take that fight. He's one of those guys, like we were discussing some fighters, where the name value to the skill level is, there's a big, like the scales don't match up with those two. You know what I mean?
Yep. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So it just, there's not enough upside to beating him. He doesn't have enough of a name for as big of a risk as it is. So Morrell is a boogeyman. I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that it's just one of those things. David's done enough to where if he wanted to wait, he kind of gets his opportunity to wait for that Canelo fight or do what he's doing. Go up and get the other big fight that you can get and make, he's done enough to where, like in his career so far, that he should go ahead and get a chance at it. He's obviously the number one guy. David Morrell's the number two guy right behind him, and they could be fighting each other. I just think both of them are like, I think Morrell would take it because he's the step below, but David's kind of like, I don't have to go there if I don't want to.
Yeah, I think really everybody wants the Canelo payday, and that's what Canelo was saying when he first won the titles, was everyone else needs to fight each other. But now we're 2 years separated from that pretty much. So, and Canelo's been fighting people that it's like nobody really asked for those fights. So I get it. And then Alfredo again, no one will fight him unless he's a mandatory. And I mean, that's the thing, technically Morrell should have been the mandatory because the WBA was supposed to unify all their titles and whatnot, but we'll see what happens. Benavidez is going to go after better Bivol winner. Kudos to Benavidez. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're saying on here. Too. That's, but then how about this, Alfredo? We'll ask you this question. Ask the audience here. Benavidez wins on Saturday. Does he then go after the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol? Or if Canelo gives him the opportunity, and let's say both of those fights are on the table and he has the option, and let's just say for argument's sake, they're even money. Let's take money out of the equation. Which one does he take? Which actually, I don't know if you can take money out of the equation because the whole point of fighting Canelo is kind of for the money, right?
Yeah, but either way, if Canelo gives him the opportunity, I think, please, by all means, Alfredo, please answer the question, but I believe he'll take Canelo just wholeheartedly because he wants that. It's like, it's to get the country behind him. It's the handing off of the torch type thing.
Yeah.
And I think he wants that more than anything. He's like, no, I'm the guy now, not you. I'm the guy. Give it to me. You know what I mean? Give it to me.
For sure. And it's such a career-defining fight that if he could win, and there's a huge chance that he could win that fight. You know what I mean? We saw what happened when Canelo was outsized against Bivol, even though they're completely different fighting styles. I do think the size had a big factor in 100%, there.
100%.
Turkey's going to make those fights happen. Clap, 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 clap. I agree with you, man. His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh is doing good things for the sport. He's talking about even making like a league and buying out a bunch of companies. Real quick, what are your thoughts on that? on them. They're talking about like PBC, Golden Boy, Matchroom, Queensberry, buying out all of those and essentially having one league. I have a pretty good point, I think, to it. I want to see if you have a similar idea or what your idea is or
And when
thoughts
you
on it.
say league, do you mean like one organization like a UFC?
I don't know that it would be like a UFC. It would just essentially be kind of like one promotion where the guys have to fight each other, but I mean, the governing bodies are still involved. I don't know that they're going to make their own title. You know what I mean? Essentially, what they're doing is just buying out promotions.
No, I get that, but when you run all the promotions, um, and you have that much money, I do believe you can change the way that boxing is like made, like are done. And it would take somebody with a lot of money and a lot of willpower that wants to bring something together to be able to change the landscape of boxing like that. To me, because I want to see all the fights that I want to see. I want to see all the ones that I ever thought I could see in boxing, and it takes so hard to go from promotion to promotion, get them together. No one wants to split money with anybody.
Yeah,
it's always up and down with issues. The contract talks are just absolutely outrageously ridiculous sometimes, and
it's frustrating.
Yeah, and frustrating for the fans mostly. I'm sure it's their way to make money, and I get it, but it's for the fans.
It's
frustrating,
so especially for our Fight Bananas audience who are used to. If for anybody that's listening who's coming from the Fight Bananas world, who's an MMA fan, kind of dipping their toe into boxing, y'all don't have to deal with this problem ever. I mean, the only thing we've seen recently is the Francis Ngannou departure.
Yeah.
With that, and then Dana's just kind of like, nope, shutting it down. There's no cross promotion, no nothing. He left, middle finger, kick him out the door, or whatnot. So, but yeah, I mean, continue.
No, and I think what I would like is like one UFC like that, like just one organization where it covers. I don't care what you call it, World Boxing Organization, World Class Boxing, promotion. I don't care what.
Yeah, there is a World Boxing Organization. It's called
I
WBO.
just thought when I said that, I just like stupid WBO. But I was like, I don't care what you call it. Call it something new. Call it the Saudi Boxing League for all I care. I don't care. If you're gonna do all that, let's grab the WBC title. Let's grab the ring title, and that's about all we need, in my eyes.
I say
we could just go with the ring title for all I care, because that's the one that to me is a little bit more legit. Because like we've talked about it before, where the ranking system there, and they don't give it to you until you number one fights number two. There's been divisions with nobody who's gotten the title because,
for example, this division right here, 175, that title is vacant. And John, why is that title vacant?
Because number one and number two have not fought yet, and when whoever wins out of them two will get the title, and that's the way it should be. That's how we should be defining who the main champion is. I don't mind the 4-belt era. I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with the way they do business to make fights. If you can change that for me, I mean, this was probably one of the best years I saw line up for fights on a consistent basis for the most part, because we've always went back and forth for so many years, ever since the Mayweather exchange with Manny Pacquiao, trying to get that fight how many years earlier, how many times. It's just frustrating. Let's change that. And you know who can change that? Turkish, the Sheik can change that. Al Sheik, the Prince, he can do that. He can do that. So go do that for us. But make it, I don't know, just make it easier to bring everybody together to be able to fight it. That's all I need you to do. If you do that, I would rather have less titles just to make it. If you want a title, now you got to go through these guys. You can't just go get that title over there, go get that title over there.
And then just kind of hold it hostage in the promotion. You know what I mean? You see guys do that in certain promotions and whatnot. It happens all the time. Alfredo's chiming in. I agree. He's going to do that most definitely. So I was saying, I kind of had a little extra point to throw in there, and I was going to see if you brought it up, and you did. I'll expand on it a little further. It's that Ring Magazine title. You know what I mean? So if they're going to buy out all of these promotions, the Ring title is essentially like it's not a real magazine anymore. I don't think they're actually publishing magazines anymore. They quit doing that. But what it is a Ring magazine. That you could buy that out too. Buy that out. You know what I mean? But keep the integrity of there. And I don't mind the other titles, but and you can still, like, if you win that title, you could be considered a world champion, but you're not the champion of boxing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You're considered a world champion under that organization, but you're not the world champion of boxing. And the reason why there's no pressure on these guys to not become the world champion is because they can hold it hostage in their other promotions,
So true.
because these organizations have a little too much power. If you centralize everything, I mean, there's negatives to centralizing everything too, but if you
Mhm.
get somebody with integrity and has money behind them, like the Saudis, who aren't willing to spend the money and get all those promotions under one roof, and then put that Ring Magazine title on top, and that's the title of boxing, essentially, it will automatically, like, depromote the other titles into almost like a secondary title where you still are a world champion, but you can't just win the WBC and then go off and fight, in California for forever under whoever. You have to then, because if these other guys are all going to fight each other under the Saudi umbrella, you're slowly going to not be considered the top guy anymore. And then those guys are going to end up being 1 and 2 when before you were number one, but then you fought a bunch of nobodies for 5 fights and everyone else surpassed you because that's the way the ranking systems work.
Hmm. It's essentially, let's make the ring title the one ring to combine them and bring them all together. That's what the ring title should be. It's
The one title to rule them all.
the one title to rule them all. Thank you being a nerd with me. I appreciate it.
There you go.
But that's what I definitely agree with you. I wholeheartedly, if they did it that way, I mean, who doesn't want the Rocky belt anyways, right? It's the coolest belt.
It's the Rocky belt, man. It's the best one. And that's the one that gets like the least recognition, I almost feel like sometimes, because they don't talk about it because it's like not even technically a world title out of the other world titles. They put too much emphasis on the other world titles, but that one is the boxing title. That's the best title in boxing. It's the only one. For example, our friend Alfredo here brought up a point earlier when he was talking about Lubin. He was saying Lubin's not even top 15 in the IBF out of their rankings. You know why? Because out of these organizations, it's like a pay-for-play scheme. You have to invest money into it, or you have to pay their sanctioning fees, and whoever's paying their sanctioning fees in those organizations will then get moved up in the rankings according to their fights and whatnot. But then that's also how you get things like Edgar Berlanga all of a sudden becoming a WBA mandatory. How did that happen? You know what I mean? Who did he fight to get that mandatory status? Especially when they were trying to say that it was over Morrell. I was telling the story last time about how I ran into Morrell after that fight, and I told him to his face, I go, bro, you are the mandatory.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, he is the mandatory, not Berlanga. There's no world where he was going to pass him up, but I guess now Morrell's going to go to 175. Now we are looking at a reality where that could be a thing.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, you're giving a great example here, and I love you for it because I'm going to make your point for you. Erickson Lubin, like Alfredo said, is not in the top 15 or number 54 in that IBF. Ring Magazine or Ring TV has him at number 5 in the division.
There you go. So it's one of those things where if the money comes in, if the right talks come in, he could get bumped up in those rankings most likely. But that's the thing, man. You look at some of these rankings and you're like, how is this person ranked above this person? And it's just because of who invests their time and money and whatnot into those divisions.
100%.
But we need to kind of take away the power of those divisions and whatnot and put it under that one. And I guess kind of like my last point on this subject is what would help boxing a lot, I think, too, which really helps the UFC, is what's something that you notice, right? When top guys fight in the UFC, what do you see next to their name? You see a little
ranking.
You see a ranking next to their name. In boxing, you don't see a ranking next to their name. And that's because in the WBC and whatever they're fighting for, the rankings are all over the place. That would confuse people even more than they're already confused. So if you were to have it all under the Ring Magazine rankings, now we're talking. you could put Ring Magazine rankings and put the Ring Magazine ranking number next to them.
Right next to it.
Right next to them.
That's what they do when you look at the schedule. And again, all the newcomers from the Fight Bananas community that are coming from MMA, dipping their toe into boxing, as Ray so eloquently puts that, go look at the Ring Magazine or the ringtv.com rankings and see it. And then when you look at their schedule, because that's the schedule you want to see when you're looking for boxing, you'll see that there's ranking numbers next to them of their own rankings that they're listing. So like Antuanne Russell is number 8 in their rankings in his division. David Benavidez is number 1 in their rankings. Oleksandr, who he's fighting, is number 7 in the rankings. They list them right next to each other, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. If they did that like the UFC did, and they stuck with just one ranking system, which to me, there's a lot less bias in the Ring TV than anything else, right? We agree with the Ring title. A lot less bias. It's much more based on the boxing and what you're doing rather than the money you're doing or whatever it is you're doing with the other alphabets, as Alfredo called it, which is really good. I like that. Just the alphabet people. I think that's going to be what's going to help a lot of people. Go there, look at the rankings there. Then you'll start seeing what guys are really the ones in the divisions to look to and start, finding, a more cohesive understanding of where the boxers really rank in a non-biased one ranking system. Like if we go exactly right here, right? So, and pick any one of those, look at the top guys in those divisions, and then you're going to start seeing exactly who's who, the ones you want to look out for, the ones you want to watch, the ones you want to see the names for. And then you can start watching more boxing. You start going from there. But I think I agree with you 1,000%. They need to get on this ranking system, one ranking system. Let's get the numbers next to these guys' names. Let's bring everybody together and just make this easier for us, for the fans, for the fighters, even for them to know where they need to go. I mean, when you have too many options, that's not always a good thing.
Yeah.
Like in certain sports, too many options is not always a good thing. So I think we just need one ranking system. Let's get it. And let's get the one power ring to bring them all together and rule them all.
Most definitely. See, the only thing that is kind of weird about the Ring Magazine rankings is sometimes I see fighters that get left out of it. Like in this ranking right here, like where's Caleb Plant?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where's he at? And something I noticed too is at 140. Where's 140? You got Teofimo, right? He's the champion. He's the WBO champ. Devin Haney's still the WBC champ because they didn't strip him like they probably should have. Subriel Matias is the IBF champ, but the WBA champion isn't anywhere on here. Who's Pitbull Cruz?
Yeah.
So
no, I think he's right. I think he's not in that division. They might have him listed in a different one. That's a problem.
No, because I think I had looked on lightweight, and he's not ranked on here either.
Go to 147 and just check. I'm telling you, I always see him in a weird. Sometimes they put him in different divisions than where you think they should be for some reason. I don't know. No, he's not on there either.
Yeah, so it's like they just wiped him off of the face of the earth.
Huh? Okay.
So I don't know what's going on with that, but
are they having a beef with? Or is Ring having a beef with WBA?
I don't know what's going on. No, I mean they had B-Ball. Yeah, they had B-Ball on there. But look at this. We got it looks like some breaking news. Leonard Ellerby has reportedly stepped down as Mayweather Promotions CEO, and this is of today.
Okay.
Yeah, so he just basically was saying after all the years of hard work and dedication, Leonard has made the heartfelt decision to step down as CEO to spend more time with his family and loved ones. And then he said all of this. Tank lashing out on most social media posts. If you sign with this fraud, he will F up your career. He is not a good businessman at all. Wow. Mayweather countered with the Davis. Oh, okay. Mayweather countered with the Davis Martin fight poster emblazed with the canceled across it, which to Davis then followed calling Mayweather a bitter bitch. So
that's why this is
so there was some fake news spread by Floyd Mayweather, And that's why our guy earlier thought that happened.
Okay.
Oh, I see what's going on here. Dang, so we got a little bit of beef going on with Floyd and Tank and all that, but you know what I mean? It is what it is. It's a little bit of drama in the boxing world, but
A little bit,
yeah,
right? Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
just a little bit. But what we
That's
want to see are the good fights. And speaking of Tank Davis, I think it's finally time that we get to the main event: Gervonta Tank Davis versus Frank Martin. We've touched up on it a little bit so far, but we could really break it down. I'll give it to you first. Thoughts on this
okay.
fight? You know how you see it going, whatnot. The floor is yours.
I had the utmost confidence in Frank leading up to this week. And I mean that not sense that he's going to win, but that he's just going to give Davis the toughest fight he's had yet, right? Like he's really going to push this man to the brink. And it may just come down to a decision win. I don't, Gervonta may not get him out of there, right? It could become that. I don't know. I believe that anymore. From
Why is
seeing
that? Is it because he flinched?
That, and then he looks so sucked down, man. And there's a rehydration clause, and it's not even his body, right? I can see when your body's shredded and you're sucked in a little bit, you lost your water there. But when this goes, that's when I have a problem. That's when I'm looking at you going, oh, yeah, like the beautiful jawline that wasn't there like that before. When you look like that, man, I'm not. That's near your brain. That's near your head. You're getting water sucked out of there. And then the fact that you're not going to be able to rehydrate past a certain limit, which means the next day you have to literally weigh in again, to make sure you're not past that limit.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I don't know that Gervonta gets him out of there before 9.5, and I'm going to run with that all day. I just don't. I thought for a minute, Frank, the flinch did it a little bit, not too much. I don't really care about that stuff because no one wants to get hit right before a fight. That's just stupid. So I don't really bother that. But seeing him sucked, seeing the demeanor when Gervonta was just chirping at him, just like, at the weigh-in chirping at him. And he's trying to chirp back, and then, Gervonta's just having fun with it. Like, this is like,
clowning him.
Huh?
He was clowning him.
Yeah, and he was just kind of just taking it, not even like, and just sitting back. And then when he was trying to flex, he could just the whole body language, things like that. If you want to read into it, I guess I'm reading into it a little bit, but Gervonta Davis with the finish before 9.5. And I'm putting that on it. And I literally would have told you something different yesterday. And that's that. So I literally would have told you something different.
No, I mean, I hear you for sure. It's one of those things where Gervonta's been on this stage multiple times.
Yeah.
This is his 6th pay-per-view, I want to say. So, and Frank Martin hasn't. He hasn't had a big fight like this where he's, the headliner, the guy who's, in the pay-per-view spotlight. So that could be playing into the nerves and whatnot. Does that translate into the fight? We don't know. It just comes down to, what it is. We got Paul. What time is the fight starting? So I believe the main card starts at 8.
8
o'clock, does it?
Yeah, but they're not going to walk. 8 o'clock is the main card for the pay-per-view.
They probably won't be walking until like at least past 11.
Yeah, well, you figure the 2 fights in front of them, because it's a 4-fight main card, right? So the 2 fights in front of them are both 12 rounds, right?
You probably want to give an hour between every fight. You know what I mean? So we got. Yeah,
I would say 11. I would say 11:30, 12. They walk because they're going to fill interviews. They're going to do things.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and it's going to take an hour and a half for them to walk out. Don't forget that. It's going to be a long time.
Yeah, right.
Somebody's having a rapper. Somebody's going to have another show. We'll have an intermission somewhere on accident.
Yeah. And that's what I was bringing up earlier with the Amazon Prime thing. Are we going to see some sort of like is the production going to be smooth? Like when you watch the UFC, it's like they got it down to the boom, 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 boom. They keep it going. but what time's the first fight start? I believe 8:00. I want to say the pay-per-view starts at 8. That's the Carlos Adames fight.
Yeah.
Or maybe 9. Let me just look that up, right? I don't want to be sitting here telling somebody something and then now.
I'm pretty sure I thought I saw it on Prime. Like, I'll look on my Prime real quick. Oh.
It'll begin at 8 p.m. Eastern
main
time.
card?
Yeah, main card starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So, be locked in, ready to go. But yeah, man, to get back to the fight, you were talking about the rehydration clause. We talked about it before, but that's something I just don't like. You know what I mean? I know Gervonta's a smaller guy, but if that's the case, man, then fight at 130.
Yeah, no, I
If
agree.
you're gonna fight at 135 and make people do rehydration clauses and stuff like that, then I get it. Like they're bigger or whatever. But if they're bigger than you, there's the weight class is only 5 pounds. You know what I mean? We're not in the UFC where instead of 135, you would have to go down to 125. You'd have to go all the way to flyweight and go to 125 instead of 135. So you have that 130-pound weight class there. Thing is that, we've seen the memes of Gervonta where they put him next to a Cabbage Patch Kid. Sometimes he does get a little bit more full in there. So I don't know if it's just like he doesn't want to make the weight, and because he doesn't want to make the weight and he's the A side, then he'll say, okay, well, I don't want you rehydrating to all of this because I don't want to go down there. And it makes it even like that. I get it. He's the A side. He can get away with it, but it's still, it doesn't sit right with me is what my point is.
I get it. I get it wholeheartedly. But if you want that fight, you want that paycheck,
you got to play by those rules.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't. He learned from the best, even though they're beefing.
Yeah, for sure. But the thing is, what's going to happen is, and this is what I was saying before he fought Ryan, and I don't even know that Ryan should have taken the fight on those terms. I guess he did because he had to. Because if not, like we said in the last podcast, that fight wouldn't have happened had he not taken those terms. But it comes to a point where people are going to start tuning out, because the same thing we're talking about Canelo, about how, people are going to start tuning out of Canelo because he's not fighting the people that they want him to fight. It was starting to happen with Gervonta.
Mm-hmm.
Like with the Hector Luis Garcia fight, the reason why they sold that fight was because it was like, oh, I'm going to fight him before I fought Ryan. Like the Ryan fight was already basically signed in November, but then he took that fight in January before he took the fight in April with Ryan. So it was one of those like, oh, not necessarily a tune-up because he was fighting a world champion. So we got Paul, Frank can't beat Tank. Mark my words. I mean, and then Rick Caruso chimed in earlier. He said, Frank Martin stops Tank. Heard it here first.
All right, bro. We'll quote you if that happens.
Rick Caruso, my man. If you're getting the spotlight for a week if that happens, my man.
Tell you what, you can come on the show and say you said it first. I'll tell you that if that happens.
Well, I'll send you the link, my man.
Yeah.
You can hop on here yourself. But yeah, man, it's one of like my main point is, at what point do people, like, if there's fights to be made in the division and you're not making them, especially when there was plenty of them, and you're fighting people that nobody wants to see, because before the Ryan Garcia fight, we had saw 4 pay-per-views where Tank fought people that nobody asked for, right? He fought Leo Santa Cruz, who, it was a good fight, don't get me wrong, he's a good fighter, but you're fighting a featherweight. Nobody asked for that fight either. Sold it to the fan base at a $75, $80 pay-per-view cost. Then you fight, who do you fight after that? Mario Barrios.
Yeah, which was another hydration clause.
Another hydration clause. He moved up, etc. Whatever. Mario Barrios is a great fighter, good guy. Met him in Orlando as well. But to my point, nobody asked for that fight when people were asking for other fights that made more sense. Then he was talking about fighting Rolly, who nobody asked for that fight either. There was people that were like, oh, no, people did. No, that's the fight that they were trying to sell you. And you were like, okay, yeah, we'll buy it. But nobody really if you put Rolly or the other top guys at 135, you're taking the other top guys at 135 all day. but they were already trying to sell you Rolly. So these people, you start getting, it's like a psyop, right? People start buying into it. It's PBC propaganda that we're buying into here.
And Rolly was a guy that could get on the mic and spit some ridiculous things and
Crazy
talk
stuff. Yeah, crazy stuff. But then they ended up canceling him over like a false allegation or something when Tank is, we don't have to go down that road, but there was a huge double standard with that. My conspiratorial mind was, I don't know if they were necessarily liking the numbers that they were seeing, and we're just like, okay, we'll pull it, and this maybe will like it'll be an excuse for the numbers because then he fought Isaac Cruz on like 2 weeks notice, didn't have a really good performance also, I should add, but those numbers they didn't even release. Like, I don't know if to this day they released the numbers on that. You know what I mean?
On the Cruz fight?
Yeah, on that Cruz fight. They weren't releasing those numbers. So all of this, and then he fights Rolly, then he fights Hector Luis Garcia. So actually, that's 5 pay-per-views. Leo Santa Cruz, Mario Barrios, Pitbull Cruz, Rolly, and what's his face? Hector Luis Garcia. So we're talking about, let's say it's a $75 pay-per-view, right? Which is probably $80 after the taxes and whatnot that you're paying for.
Yeah, after taxes, yeah, because it's $74.99 right now for this one.
So we're talking about $400 as a Tank fan. You've invested into that guy's career while he's not fighting any of the top guys that you're wanting to see. You know what I'm saying? So that's where really he also needed that Ryan Garcia fight too, because if he didn't fight Ryan Garcia, who else was he going to fight? Mm-hmm. Frank Martin. And to finish off my point, if he beats Frank Martin, who does he fight now? Who else are you going to sell us?
If you don't sell me Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, or Lomachenko, or that's it right now.
Well, now we are seeing some stuff pick up at 135, right? So we had Baranchik, I think his name is, beat what's his name, Navarrete for the WBO title. He was talking about wanting to get a fight with Lomachenko. Those are both under Top Rank, so I think they'll probably make that fight first before make a unification with Shakur.
You think think that 2 Ukrainians would fight each other?
Real quick, 8 p.m. And then the Tank fight's probably like past 11.
Yeah.
But Baranchik, even though what are you talking about? Baranchik and Lomachenko? Because they're both from Ukraine? Yeah. Baranchik, I mean, they're not at the same camp or nothing. Baranchik said he wants that fight. He wants to see who's the best Ukrainian. So that's what I thought too initially, right?
Yeah, I went that way.
Because the Ukrainian's kind of like a small circle.
Yeah.
So I had the same exact thought as you, but no, to your question.
Okay.
He said he's down for it, and that's good.
He's not the best Ukrainian. He's going to lose to Loma, but I mean, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Most definitely. And then Top Rank is going to, because I saw Gervonta talking about, after Frank, I want Lomachenko. That fight's not going to happen next. Why? Because it's boxing.
Yeah.
You have other fights in the division under Top Rank that they can make. Top Rank has 3 of those titles. They got the WBO title, they got the IBF title now, and they have the WBC. They're going to unify all of those first before they make the super fight for undisputed with Tank Davis. But in the meantime, who does Tank fight? I don't know. But first, he's got to get past Frank Martin.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a given, but from what we're saying, I mean, we'll see what happens.
I think he does, though.
If Rick Caruso's right, then
you will see him on the show next week. I promise you that. If he's right, you're right, bro. Because I said the other way. Told you I would have said something different yesterday, but today I'm sticking with my guns. 9.5. Gervonta gets him out.
So we'll see if that happens. I know I've been yapping about a lot of other things other than the breakdown of this fight, but real quick, I'll give my breakdown. I saw another breakdown recently that was talking about that people aren't necessarily sure if Frank Martin can fight going backwards. And if that's the case, you add that on top of the rehydration clause. This is how I see this fight playing out. Gervonta's a guy that we've seen him be able to walk people down, especially the bigger guy like Barrios. But he was walking him down, once that those later rounds started kicking in, that fatigue starts to kicking in, and the fatigue is only accelerated with the rehydration clause, guys. Don't get it
100%.
twisted. You know what I
100%.
mean? People like to make the excuses for the rehydration clause. At the end of the day, I get it. It is what it is. But the rehydration clause, if we're gonna act like that has no effect on anything, then I mean,
That's
you're
silly.
lying. You're lying to us. You're lying to yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
You need to talk to your family because you're probably lying about some other things too. That being said,
Very true. Very true.
I mean, I get it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
the rehydration clause is a real thing. So the way I see this fight going is I feel like they're going to be doing the whole reading each other the first couple of rounds. The first couple of rounds, unless Tank sees those big shots or Frank Martin really comes out to try to get some respect early and put a statement on it, those first couple of rounds might be a little lackluster. They might be just kind of like, reading each other, as Desert Storm Bradley says. He's downloading the data. You know what I mean? So they might be downloading the data for a couple rounds there. But then once, Tank starts figuring them out, starts moving, as soon as he starts backing them up and putting that pressure on them, when you get pressure put on you too, that fatigues you very fast as well. You're starting to have to think quicker. You're starting to have to move backwards, which will fatigue you. It's multiple things that will start to fatigue you. So then he'll start breaking him down. When will he start breaking him down? I don't know. Is it going to be round 6? Is it going to be round 4? It's going to be round 5, 3? Who knows? We'll see. But I think somewhere in that range from 3 or 4 to round 7, we're going to see Tank start really applying pressure to him. Once the pressure starts getting applied, I think it might just be a matter of time before he gets him out of there. Because once you get past that round 6, that round 7, that's really, and you start applying that pressure, that's really where that rehydration clause is going to affect you even more. Don't get me wrong. I think even without it, and that's kind of the reason why I bring up the rehydration clause, is because I feel like Tank can win these fights without it anyways.
Yeah.
But possibly the reason why everyone's like, oh, Tank's so good, and you really go off of the eye test. But does he look so good because there isn't that, or because there is that rehydration? You know what I mean?
It plays a factor in the thought process for sure.
Yeah, is it making his victories look even better because he's being able to perform better because he has a semi-compromised opponent in front of him in those later rounds?
Yeah. And I think you made an excellent point, like early, like when you were saying about Frank, for Frank to be able to last longer and be able to have what I would say is the ability to go 12 rounds with Gervonta, he's going to have to get respect early. He's going to have to when I say hurt, hit him hard enough to where he wobbles, not saying he's going to go down, but get respect. Like when you get cracked by somebody, when you've done something a little bit more aggressive or something, you caught yourself slipping and you get cracked, you kind of get on your P's and Q's, or you go do the same stupid thing again and then you get hurt, right? But if usually you get on your P's and Q's and then you're like, okay, I got to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more tactical and technical to do these things. And I think that's the key to Frank Martin getting past those later rounds and having a shot at getting a finish. Not a finish, but finishing the fight and having a shot at winning. Because I think that's the only way he wins. I don't think he gets Gervonta out of there. I think that rehydration clause also zaps power quickly because you didn't get fully loaded. It's like
for sure, because
it's like you didn't fill the gas tank all the way up to full, and you're trying to go on a long trip, and then you're like, damn, I got to
drive the Cali.
Yeah. So I think you're right with that. I think if he doesn't gain it early, if he doesn't apply that pressure on Gervonta early just to get that respect and crack him with something, and instead he plays that long downloading game, 6 and 7, he's going to be on that back foot. If he can't fight on the back foot, literally like you just said, that's where it's going to come in. And I just don't. I'm like, I see it. That's good. I like that's the way I look at it too.
Yeah, and you said something there. He's gonna have to get his respect early, and you said he might have to wobble him. I don't even know that he has to wobble him. He just has to hit him with that shot that makes you go, okay. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah.
It really like wakes you up, and you're kind of like, all right, this fight is real.
Yep. 100%.
Not that it's not like that every time. Because when you're professional in there getting hit with pro shots,
Yeah.
it's it's different. Even just anybody who's like boxed before, if you spar like an amateur guy that's really good, okay, cool, but then you start spar with like a pro dude who's really good, and they can like something about those guys can crack you in a way where you're just like, oh, whoa, this is a little bit different. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And
Yep.
especially a guy like these guys on the world class level.
The upper echelon. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
most definitely. So as long as he cracks him with something that makes Tank have to, sit back and go, okay, I can't just move forward. It's essentially like offensive defense mechanism
Mm-hmm.
where I hit you hard enough to the point where you go, all right, I have to think twice before I make the move that I wanted to make.
Yep. Yep.
So I can't just it's gonna have to involve some more feints, stuff like that.
It makes you think twice. It makes you like literally. It's just you're gonna have to game plan better because now you realize, damn, he has enough that I have to respect it, and that's what it comes down to.
Most definitely. But that being said, for all of our listeners here, who do you think's gonna win this fight? What are your predictions? Drop them in the comments. We can see what y'all thinking about this. Do you think Gervonta wins? Do you think Frank Martin's gonna be able to pull the upset? And what round? Do you think there's gonna be a stoppage? Is it gonna be unanimous decision, split decision? Is there even a chance at a draw in this fight? You know what I mean? We saw Isak Cruz come in, and there was people arguing that fight could have been a draw. There was people arguing that fight could have went to Isak.
Mm-hmm.
There was people arguing that it was Tanks all day. I don't have a scorecard for you on that fight close by. I might go back and rewatch it, maybe rescore it just for content purposes. But who knows?
I think that fight with Isak, I think that with Cruz with Pitbull, I think that actually it entices me to see a rematch if Cruz wins another fight and does it. I'm not upset with that. I'll watch that one again now
Yeah.
because that was a banger. I was good with it.
You
And it
know
made
what?
it.
So that answers my question from earlier on, okay, if he beats Martin, who does he fight next? And that's pretty much the perfect answer.
Yeah.
People have been wanting to see the Isak Cruz rematch. I thought that fight was going to happen. Isak Cruz is somebody who his stock has risen even higher now because he went and just stopped Rolly Romero at
Yep.
140 pounds.
Yep.
And for Tank, he had won the regular title, which is essentially the WBA like secondary title, not the full world championship in the 140-pound division.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chance because Isak Cruz isn't really a full 140-pounder either, right?
He's
There's
just
a
dog.
chance, there's a chance that they could make that rematch for like a 136 catch weight, similar to when Canelo and Miguel Cotto fought for the middleweight title. They fought it at 1 pound higher than the junior middleweight limit.
Mm-hmm.
They fought it at 155. We got Dave Van Auken himself live from Las Vegas. Tank flies by Martin tomorrow night. Dave's over there getting some content for us for the Fight Bananas page, Boxer Bananas page. Shout out to Dave. He's out there working, but I know he's enjoying himself as well. So
Oh yeah.
shout out
But
to you, Dave.
I think he sees what I see too, man. I think there was a little bit in that way in that last face off that I just didn't like the body language.
I mean, if he does fly by Martin, that'll be super impressive. You know what I mean? But we got to
Yeah.
see what happens. And then ultimately, like we were talking about, what's next? I think that Pitbull Cruz is definitely the next one to sell, and he can do it.
Yeah.
Dave says for 3 days. So shout out to Dave.
No, so he's been so what he's saying is he's been watching that Tank has been big brother
Bothering
for
him.
3 days. That's what I knew he was saying. That like he's saying he's yeah. And Martin, that's exactly what it looked like when you just said it. He was clowning him and he was just kind of taking it. We just talked about that. That's what I'm saying. Just not good body language. It's not good body language.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is it seems Frank's not necessarily comfortable. He looks nervous a little bit, and Gervonta's like super comfortable. This is just he's this is the 7th time that he's been in a pay-per-view. So he's there. He's there mentally. He's clowning around, he's doing his thing, he's talking shit to Floyd, he's doing other things.
Yeah, he's done this before. This is him being what he does during his fight week. You know what I mean? This is how he treats it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Frank's trying to figure that out during a pay-per-view fight week for the first time, and that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, most definitely. But before we wrap up, any last thoughts on just the card, just the fights over the weekend? What are you thinking?
I'm really excited, bud. I can't wait. I can't wait. I got to go do a bridge workout tomorrow with some of my boxers and stuff. And then I'm just going to sit around and get ready. Yeah. That's literally my plan. Like, that's what I'm doing. I may have to run to Costco one of those days, you know what I mean? Like the family thing, I might have to do that. Like, I'm gonna pull it's not gonna be Tank versus Frank. I'm gonna pull Frank the Tank from old school, and I might have to go run to Costco and Home Depot for a minute. Nothing too crazy, but might have to do that. But then I'm just gonna be sitting around waiting for this fight because I'm excited. I'm super excited. And also,
Dave Van Auken, watch out for a major upset in the co-main event. He's talking about Gvozdyk versus Benavidez. He thinks Gvozdyk's gonna win. Dave, you're there live. You're seeing these fighters backstage, everything. What are you seeing? Give us a little inside scoop here. What are you seeing that makes you think that Benavidez is not only going to pull off a spectacular performance, but not even win the fight? David B looked soft.
We talking about around the waist and the body? Is that what we're talking about?
Underweight. Oh, which is surprising. What did he weigh in at?
Yeah, what was his weight? If he didn't hit the I did see them stand next to each other. He didn't look intimidated or not. The dude's coming to fight for sure.
I mean,
what Ray said? What did he weigh in at, Dave?
168.2. No, there's no way.
That's all.
They're fighting at 175.
Why would he come in 6.8 pounds under? Why would you do that? Did he say why?
I don't know. Wow. Oh, 173.2 is what he meant. My bad.
Okay.
But 173.2, wow, that's actually pretty surprising.
That's still like I would have stopped at like 174.5 at the most.
Yeah, that's weird. You know what I mean? Yeah, especially because even when he was on the Usman podcast, he was talking about, like, oh, I'm getting up to like 190, this and that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they're so used to like whatever practices they're doing. That's the thing too, man. When it comes to cutting weight and everything in the boxing world, they're still a little barbaric in their practices compared to like kind of the MMA space. You know what I mean? I've done like the weight cut like classes essentially with Mike Dolce, where I've learned from him. I even had we were in like a Zoom room and I had GSP's coach, Faraz Sahabi, like next to me in the screen. So I was like, what the heck am I doing in this room? But I just really wanted to learn about it and whatnot. But he was talking about the science behind it, this and that. And I compare it to like some of the stuff I've seen in boxing, and in boxing, it's still kind of to the old school ways of like, oh, just get in the plastics, the sauna suit for people who don't know the terminology, and then just go jump rope outside especially in Florida, in the Florida heat, until you sweat it off every single day, and make sure you don't drink the water. Like it's more of an unhealthy way. And then they go cook them. They'll go sit in the sauna for an hour, cook their brain mentally, stuff like that. So it's a little bit different. So maybe it's the practices, the weight cutting practices. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point.
Could be.
But Dave says Alexander has been a quiet assassin all week.
Well, he's only lost one time, and he lost to essentially the best guy in the division right now, who has the most belts and has knocked everybody out. So I wouldn't be shocked if he did. Like it would be more shocking to me if Frank does it to Gervonta than if Gvozdyk did it to Benavidez. And that may seem weird to people, but that's because this dude has fought the best in the world at that side of it. He's fought Adonis Stevenson, won a title. That dude was never a slouch in any type of way. You know what I mean? Like he's done these things and he fought the best there, and he's a bigger man, and clearly he's coming in as the bigger man as far as weight, getting it right, coming in right, probably right at that thing. The level is probably going to rehydrate a little bit better.
And even losing to Beterbiev, it's like you still have that experience of fighting him.
Exactly. So I mean, if he comes in and does it, I can see that. I've disagreed with Dave before. I'm going to do it right now. I don't think it's going to happen. But if you call it Dave, I give you $1 like I do every time, baby. Like,
I mean, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to agree with Dave right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. But he's in there seeing stuff.
He's
in there seeing stuff right now live from Las Vegas that we're not seeing. So maybe that's a little inside scoop. Or maybe, maybe Dave's getting ahead of himself. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. You know what I'm saying?
But also, we launched our new IG page, right?
Yeah. So make sure, guys, you check out the Fight Bananas official page because we will be dropping our live scorecards. So make sure you score the fight. You could look alongside of us. We'll be dropping our scorecards throughout every 3 to 4 rounds on IG. And then almost like kind of like that live scoring system, or the unofficial score. And we're just a little bit younger than Harold Letterman was when he was doing it. At like 90 years old, they still had him over there doing it.
Yeah, and get in the comments after every post. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know, you know what I mean? Like what you got to score at. How's it going? We're going to go co-main event and main event for tomorrow. So we're doing the Benavidez, Oleksandr fight, and then we're doing Tank and Frank. So get in the comments and let us know. And then somebody who gets it really close and really right, hey man, we'll shout you out. Maybe, get in the comments and we'll see what happens. But Caruso, if Frank stops Tank, bro, you the man.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I'd be surprised as well. But that's the thing, man. It's boxing, anything can happen. So, yeah, that being said, we got some big fights tomorrow. That weekend preview. Remember, Subriel Matias versus Liam Paro. It's a big fight coming out of Manatí, Puerto Rico. We got Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin, the undercard. We got some good fights on there. Carlos Adames defending the WBC middleweight title, as well as Antuanne Russell trying to not only keep his undefeated record, but his 100% knockout streak going as well, I'm sure. And then David Benavidez moving up to 175 pounds for the WBC interim title against Oleksandr Gvozdyk. This is a fight that could potentially set him up for the winner for the undisputed between Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. That's going down in October. And the main event, Gervonta Tank Davis versus Frank Martin.
That's it.
We're going to see what happens. That being said, guys, make sure you add us on Instagram. Keep up with us. Follow us. Boxing Bananas official brand new page we just made today. We're going to be dropping all the stuff, collabing with Fight Bananas, of course. And make sure you subscribe to the Fight Bananas YouTube. If you don't subscribe to the Fight Bananas YouTube, man, what are you doing? You know what I mean? We're bringing you this heat content here. So that being said, check us out. We'll be posting on the IG until next week. Early next week, we'll be dropping our, reaction video. You know what I mean? Just the review of all the fights that happened this weekend. But I'm definitely excited. So until next time, my friends.